All right, guys, did you write down on a piece of paper what you think is politically the most important thing in your life? We want that for the first class, okay? Um, some of you asked, what the textbook is and can you buy, copies online and so on. I don't care where you get it. This is the textbook, American Government and Politics Today. It's the 2011-2012 edition. This is what it looks like. It's in the bookstore. Make sure you get this book. There are a lot of books out there. There are a lot of obsolete books out there too, and if you get the wrong one, you'll be wasting your money or you'll be disappointed because it won't make any sense to you. We won't be covering the material that's in here. So let me tell you what this book looks like inside. It's got a bunch of chapters, and it's got a pretty good content in brief, and I'll just kind of go down the list and check off some of those things there for you. Okay. All right, so what we have is the first section of this book is something that basically is called the American political system. And it's kind of like the foundation. When you build a house, you have to dig a foundation and, put in the basics to then put the house on it. And this is the foundation of the material that we are actually going to cover. We have a little introductory section that talks about the democratic republic. What is a republic? What is basically characteristic generally of the United States? And there are a bunch of things that you can talk about that really make an impact on the American system, on how we do things. And in that chapter, we actually cover what I call the salad bar of different types of regimes, governments, political systems, and so on. And it's amazing, how broad the variety is. I mean, you can have totalitarian regimes, which is a form of government that controls everything, in which the government controls the arts, the government controls sports, the government controls every aspect of people's lives. And can you think right now of a government that actually fits that characteristic in the world? What government is that? Did you say North Korea? You would be right. North Korea is a government that is probably the most extreme government characterized by totalitarianism, because, as you know, people have no freedom about anything, and the government controls everything. There are authoritarian governments, which are essentially regimes in which the government is heavily controlled by the ruler, in which people don't have a lot of input, and there are social and economic institutions and farms and businesses and companies and stuff like that that are not controlled by the government, but the government itself doesn't get a lot of input from citizens. It's authoritarian, strong authority, strong control. There used to be something called aristocracies, and aristocracies are governments by the, quote, best people in the society, and you can imagine what that means. I mean, basically an aristocracy are the people who are educated, powerful, wealthy, and kind of in control, and of course they consider themselves to be the best, and therefore they essentially run things and dismiss the masses and others as being really inconsequential and not prepared to participate and to contribute to governance. So there are theocracies too, and theos is, of course, the word for God, and theocracies are governments in which gods and religious leaders actually run the country. I'm not sure there is one nowadays. We talk about Iran sometimes, and Iran does have a theocratic class of ayatollahs or high priests of Islam who are very influential, but they don't quite control the country. But I think it's the closest that we can come to a country in which the essentially the Holy Scripture, in that case the Quran, is the document that determines how policies are made for the most part, and of course the word of Allah, of the holy figure of Islam. The word of Allah is is all dominant. So theocracies are pretty rare nowadays, and they used to be more popular and more frequent. There's another distinction we refer to as an oligarchy. An oligarchy is a little different from an aristocracy. In others, an oligarchy is kind of a small group of people, both in government and out of government, business executives and others who control the system and rule. The United States does have a very powerful, business class as well as a political class, but I don't think we're really an oligarchy. I think that elections and the free press and other things really undermine the potential of that. Anarchy is another condition. It's not really a form of government because, anarchists are people who don't believe in government. They don't want government, and they believe that society should just rule itself and that government is bad and should go away. It tends to perhaps work, although in very small societies with very few people. Although I think that I'm not sure I know of any cases of successful societies where there was no one in charge. The Occupy Wall Street movement, which you've probably heard about, was sort of anarchy because the one thing they didn't want is a leader. They didn't want anyone in control, and so they made all the decisions kind of as a group and so on. And that's an example, of course, of a very small movement, not really a government or a society. So I think anarchy is not so practical. The other thing is a word that we use a lot, and I'm looking at it here. It's democracy, which is a system of government in which political authority is vested in the people. Demos is people, kratos is authority. And so democracy technically is government by the people. And I think, the U.S. aspires to that. I don't think we've gotten there fully, and we may never get there, but it's the idea that the people ought to play a major role in what things are done. And obviously it's much easier if it's a very small society, a small country, maybe a Greek city-state, where you can actually expect all the people to get together and make decisions. There is something in the United States that we call direct democracy, and it's a system of government where the decisions are actually made by the people, not by representatives, because the democracy that I'm talking about earlier here, just a minute ago, is a representative democracy. The people actually don't make the decisions. The people elect individuals, and those individuals go and make decisions for them. But direct democracy, the people actually show up and raise their hand and vote for, building a new bridge, or hiring more teachers or whatever it is, without the representatives meeting and doing that. When you think of any place in the United States where there is the direct democracy, I don't know if my TAs want to pause the DVD and have you suggest something. Okay. Well, obviously, there are very few places, but the New England town meeting, which still takes place, I've been to those because I have a house in New Hampshire, for example. They have it there. Towns still have town meetings where they get together and they actually make decisions without electing people. What they elect is city managers and people to implement stuff. But the town shows up to make decisions, and it's really pretty cool, but not very practical for a big country or even for a big city. So direct democracy is pretty tough to do. So obviously in the United States, then we have representative democracy. We want the people to participate. We want the people to engage. We want the people to essentially contribute to who makes the decisions, okay? We vote for people who are, quote, our representatives. And those representatives then actually get together and implement policies. And supposedly those policies are policies that we would like, that are successful, and that work. Obviously, the nice thing about a political system like ours is if those things don't work and people are ticked off, they vote out the representatives, or they can vote them out if they want to, either the governor or president or members of Congress, and vote in somebody else who might do a better job. So it's one step removed from direct democracy. But it's a pretty nice system. People do get a chance to get engaged and to participate in the process, and therefore it has been, I would say, the envy of many countries around the world. So the other thing that we talk about in the first segment, which is the Democratic Republic, we talk about the Constitution. The Constitution is kind of the contract. It really literally is a contract between government and the people, and it says what the government will do and how it will do it, and what the people will do and what the people's rights are, and it spells out all of that. The second thing that's in the third chapter in that first section actually is about federalism, and federalism is about, and the Constitution spells federalism out as well. You know what federalism is. The U.S. is divided into 50 states, and there's one federal government, and there are 50 states, and power is distributed and divided between the federal government and the states, and the federal government is responsible for national defense, and the states are empowered by the Constitution to do such things as education. And over time, the federal government has played a bigger role in the states, and I think it's clear that the federal government has actually grown more than the power of the states, and partly it's because things get more and more complex over time. But we do have federalism, and it is a working distribution of power. Things are very different in Mississippi from what they are in Vermont in the way the decisions are made and what is done. Some states have gay marriage legalized, and other states have prohibited gay marriage. And my own view is that the power and the magic of federalism has to be respected. We have to be very careful not to undermine the rights of states and communities to make choices and homogenize everything and have it all done by the federal government. I think that's a huge threat. I think younger people supported someone like Ron Paul, for example, the congressman from Texas, in the last primaries, because he doesn't want the federal government to dictate too much, and in fact thinks it's already way too much to the states. And I think that's something that in this course we can talk about some more, we can explore that. So the first section is the American system, and it talks about basic principles and how we are different from other countries and what the choices would be. And then the Constitution, we'll look at that in detail, and federalism. So that's the underpinnings. It's kind of like the foundation of the building, and that's where we will start. And I hope as you read the chapters that you will go chronologically through and start with that first part. You'll notice that the tests generally cluster around those parts. There are 5 parts in the book. There are 5 tests, so figure that one out. Some of the parts have more chapters, so we start out with a few, and then in some of the sections we make you run a little harder and do a little bit more work on different topics. But it's been very successful. I've had a lot of input from students, both into the textbook, of course, and also into the structure of the class. And I've changed it quite a bit to meet what I think students had suggested. They liked what didn't work so well. So if you have any ideas, please feel free also to share those with our TAs and also with myself.